another edition of Wrestling with Faith. Wherever you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And whether you're watching us on youtube.com/Wrestling with Faith UK or on facebook.com Wrestling with Faith UK as well. Or if you're listening to Spotify on any other platforms on Anchor, such as obviously we've got Google, we've got Amazon, and we've also got on there as well. We're on the Apple podcast service. So big thank you to anybody and everybody who's listening to us now. And we're going to jump straight into it because this is a guy who I'm absolutely buzzing to get to chat to and for you guys to listen to as well. This is a man amongst many things in his illustrious career. And just gauge that by what he's got going on behind him. Look at all the belts for all you guys who are able to see the visuals on it and the photos as well. This is a man who made the 3 count in Ric Flair's final ever match, amongst many, many other things we're going to tackle today. And it gives me a great pleasure to say, God bless and welcome to Super Dave. Ref Super Dave, how are you doing?
Doing great, Dave. Thank you for having me this morning. That's a heck of an introduction right there.
I'll try and get through it as best I can, mate, so you hear less of me and more of you. But yeah, really, really appreciate you taking the time out. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon here. What time is it where you're based?
It's 7 o'clock in the morning.
Good grief, man. Even more blessed to have you on, man. So I hope you've had your caffeine fix before you got on.
I've got it going right now. I'm loaded up because
there he is with his monster can. Amen to that, brother. Amen.
I hosted a watch along last night of the Royal Rumble on we had a watching party on ad free shows. Wow. And as you know, the Royal Rumble went, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning when I rolled out. We got in bed last night, so did not anticipate that.
And you'll be sleeping. So, well, tell you what, let's tackle that then, Dave. Obviously, I know the results, how the Royal Rumble went last night, and man, there was some things that I thought, personally, as a wrestling fan, I thought were pretty predictable. You could kind of predict some of the outcomes, what were going to happen, and there were some things that were just like, whoa, didn't see that coming, for better or worse. What were your feelings as somebody involved in the industry, as a referee who's been at the top of his game as well, in some high-profile matches? What was your overall, thoughts and feelings about the Royal Rumble?
I thought it was a good Rumble. I think the Women's Rumble was superior. I really liked the Women's Rumble much, much better. The Men's Rumble really didn't have any surprises other than Booker T. Logan Paul is incredible.
Awesome.
I mean, for what a man that does not do this regularly can do, I'm in awe of Logan Paul every time he goes out there. He does not embarrass himself. He does not embarrass the business.
Do you think he looks like a guy who's just been doing it, like coming up through the indies for the past 10 years plus? Because to me, he just hits the ground running in every match he's been in so far.
Well, I mean, look at two things. Well, at WrestleMania last year, he did the Three Amigos.
Yeah.
And got the crowd to hate him for doing it. And with no disrespect to Dominic Mysterio, Dominic tries to do it, and it's not even close. No. I mean, to what Logan Paul does, that one particular move. And then he does the buckshot lariat like Hangman Page.
Yeah.
And his buckshot lariat is superior to Hangman Page's.
It packs a punch, doesn't it?
It's flawless. And then he jumped the spot. You go out of your way to see what happened with him and Ricochet last night. WWE's even has it on their Twitter, has a clip of it. That's incredible. I mean, the man if he put his mind to it, I mean, if he wanted to do this all the time, he's top guy in the industry.
Nailed.
So that was my biggest takeaway last night. I thought the Bloodline story with Sammy, I don't know that I like how it ended. I was ready for it to do what happened last night. But the matches for the most part were good. The Women's Rumble was the shining part. The Pitch Black was a great presentation. Really was a great presentation. And I was told by people that were there that it was just as impressive in the arena with the black lighting.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought the women's match ended abruptly. I thought the U.S. title match ended abruptly.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And I mean, it was like, wow, that's it. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it was the greatest Royal Rumble that's ever been on, but it was definitely entertaining. And wasn't a big fan of the musical act either.
No,
And
no.
surprised me because he's got one of the best songs. I mean, they got a song on the radio, and he's really good on the radio. It didn't translate to wrestling arena for me.
No, and I think that sometimes for me is where WWE go wrong, is they tend to latch on what's relevant pop culture wise. And for me, it doesn't always resonate, like you just said there, you touched upon there. It doesn't resonate to what's going on at that particular point in time in the ethos of WWE, whether it be certain storylines, certain gimmick matches, it's almost like it's a shoe-in because it's popular right now. I got that vibe when Bad Bunny was in WWE about a year and a half ago with Damian Priest, before obviously Damian Priest joined up with Finn Balor and co. For me, it was just like I'm not connecting the dots as a fan. I'm just, maybe because I'm not into that sort of music, maybe because I didn't really know who Bad Bunny was, that may have been a factor in it. But as a wrestling fan, I couldn't correlate. And again, but they've done it before as well with certain other music acts. So I think, just to play into your point, what you said there, I think it's another example of sometimes we're just trying to sort of put, round shapes into square holes, right. and it just doesn't correlate. But I'm glad you picked up on the fact about the Women's Royal Rumble itself being the better one, because for me, it needed to be after they dropped the ball of Raw 30, the Raw anniversary, with what could have been an absolutely brilliant match between, I think it was going to be, get my facts right on that. Was it going to be a returning? There was going to be a cage match, wasn't there? I keep forgetting the competitor's name now, but they dropped it because the Bloodline segment about the court of Sami Zayn overrun. Right. And so for me, they had to get that absolutely spot on.
Oh yeah, yes, with Bailey and Becky.
Bailey and Becky. I do apologize. Yes, it was Bailey and Becky. For me, that was the match I was looking forward to the most on Raw, because that had a lot of heat, a lot of history from NXT, and and the dynamics of how their characters have formed since NXT and the paths that they've gone down. And for that match to be dropped was, for me, really dropped down the overall quality of that Raw. So to get the Women's Royal Rumble spot on, kind of almost, not quite, glosses over the ball that they dropped on that last week as well. So, yeah, overall, I would agree with you. I don't think it was the best Rumble card ever. I don't think there was some of the best individual matches, but it certainly has. It wasn't the worst. I've seen worse.
Right. Oh, yeah. I needed more surprises.
Yeah.
I'm accustomed to it. And having Booker T. Now, I was excited to see Nia Jax back. I may be in the minority because she catches a lot of heat, but I love Nia Jax.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. She's one of the nicest, sweetest people. If you ever get to meet her, she's one of the nicest, sweetest people you'll ever meet in her life. But I did actually get excited for her just when I saw her come out, and I thought the way that she entered the Rumble and left the Rumble was really entertaining.
And I think so as well. I think especially, after the sort of court of public opinion when she left WWE as well, and the reasons as to why she left, and the heat that you've alluded to there. She got a lot of heat because allegedly she was at fault for some genuine injuries to opponents and things like that as well. But I think the way that they kept that really under wraps. I didn't see anything on the socials at all about Nia Jax being rumored to be coming back to that. So
complete surprise.
I thought that was a nice touch. But again, with you, I'd like to see a few more of the old schoolers come in. I mean, one of the highlights for me many years ago, I think it was Royal Rumble 2001, where Kane set the record for being the longest entrant at that point in a Royal Rumble, was when we had people like Honky Tonk Man coming in and trying to stop Kane and trying to do his show, like play his guitar, and Kane just hitting him with the guitar. For me, things like that about the Royal Rumble are what makes it the Royal Rumble work, is having some old school talents in there who once upon a time could throw the weight. But then obviously, the years catch up with us all. And, having little comedy moments like that, I felt there was lacking that last night. I didn't think there was as much fun as opposed to just.
And you guess you could say the positive is that more people that work there that actually got a spot in the Rumble.
Again.
Instead of outsiders, but seeing people there that aren't supposed to be there is what's kind of cool in wrestling right now. Like Shinsuke Nakamura going to New Japan to wrestle Muta.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
Massive.
So I guess there was rumors that we'd get somebody from New Japan. So I kind of, we played a game on my podcast where we picked 4 wrestlers that there were going to be surprises.
Okay.
And but to make what you did is, like, if you pick number 1, they got 50 points. Number 2 was 25, 3 was 15, 4 was 10. Well, the person that won it got 50 points for Booker T.
Yeah, wow.
Because Booker T was a second place pick for somebody else. And I didn't get any right. And then there was somebody else there was 4 of us that played. So 2 of us didn't get any right. Now, I was going to say Chelsea Green, but when I picked her, they said she signed with them. So, because she signed with NXT. So I didn't know she had signed there. So I couldn't take Chelsea Green.
Yeah.
But I half expected Matt Cardona to make an appearance. I expected Nick Aldis to make an appearance. I was hoping, and I wouldn't have been shocked if Okada maybe, because normally WWE doesn't allow something without getting something. Now, that being said, there may be some Hall of Fame considerations from somebody from Japan. I mean, we can only hope.
Massively.
So maybe it's just not let myself have some some expectations that didn't come through.
Yeah, and maybe a bit of sort of fantasy booking as well, which would have been.
Look when the Hurricane came back. Nobody knew. So I mean, that was like with Nia Jax last night. And the women's match was kind of brilliant because I expected Beth Phoenix at 30. We'd already seen her. And she looked like she was ready to wrestle. She was in gimmick. And 30 hit as Nia Jax, and then it wasn't Beth Phoenix. And Rhea was in the ring, and that Beth Phoenix, because you kind of felt like it. Yeah. And what can you say about Rhea Ripley coming in at 1 and running the table?
Yeah.
Incredible performance. And to Gunther.
Yeah.
You mentioned Kane setting a record. Gunther did last night, 71 minutes.
Yeah. And Gunther's been on the crest of a wave, though, hasn't he? Since he's come from, I mean, he was fantastic in NXT. I was all into that character, that sort of, Imperium. I really bought into that. When a stable's done well, you can't help but buy into it. It was like when we had the Wyatt family at its peak, when we had the Shield at its peak as well. Even when we're going like before that, we had Evolution. Before that, when we had the original incarnation of the Horsemen. When a stable is done well, you're invested as a fan, whether you're cheering for them or whether you're booing them. But then out of that as well, as we know, as you well know, individuals have, stables get split up. Certain individuals can ride on that solo crest of a wave. Some can't. Some need a stable. Some need a tag partner. Some can just do it all. And I think Gunther's one of those that can really do it all. He can work well in a tag. He can work well in the stable. He could work well solo. So it didn't surprise me too much to have him as the sort of, quote unquote, the star of the Rumble breaking that record, because I think the best is yet to come from Gunther.
Oh, definitely.
And I think there's a lot that can be done there with him. Not just he sells himself in the ring. I think there's a lot that, if creative really play it well, can be unpacked with certain storylines as well. as the years unfold. I think there's a lot to that as well. And Rhea Ripley, pound for pound, at the moment, in any mainstream organization that I'm watching week in, week out, is probably the best women's wrestler at the moment, and the one that excites me most as a fan to watch. I'm a big fan of Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter. You know, I still love the fact that Mickie James is still going strong as well. Jordan Grace has had a massive transformation in terms of her physique, her fitness over the last 2 years, sort of post-pandemic to where she is now. She's worked really, really hard at that. But I think when you're looking for the overall package in a wrestler, and we're on about women's wrestling, I think Rhea Ripley fully deserved to have those plaudits last night. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I didn't expect her to win, honestly, just because she's been more tied to Dominic. And that's been, you know, she's been mommy.
Yeah.
So I just didn't, but I'm for it. And I'm really hoping she picks Charlotte Flair, because Charlotte won the NXT championship from her at the COVID WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see her go after Charlotte, who I do believe is not just the best women's wrestler in the world, one of the best wrestlers in the world, period. You know, I would have liked, I was kind of halfway thinking that Charlotte would have entered the Rumble. Kind of surprised me that they didn't put her in there, because then she could have gone, maybe picked her own opponent. Or I'm kind of hoping on a personal level, I'd like to see her. I'd like to see the women's titles unified. Yeah. I like having one champion. I think it makes it special.
Yeah.
Oh, back to Jordan Grace, though. How impressive she is on television is nothing compared to seeing her in person.
Really?
I met her for the first time at Ric Flair's last match, and she is, she puts in the work. That's a very impressive. Just physically. Her, Jade Cargill, those are two that just, Bianca Belair, those are women that they work hard in the gym. Just powerful women. And
I think as well,
their work's not bad either.
Like going back to Jordan as well. I've just been impressed by how much better she was always a great wrestler, and she's been around for a good few years, and we've only started to see her sort of around about the pandemic to now being in that regular singles title matches consistently. But the way she sort of seemed to have just repackaged herself, she's started on obviously different diet, different regime within the gym as well. And like you say, obviously you've got to know her personally, but she's also, you know, her partner is pound for pound one of the most gifted technical wrestlers, who has gone under the radar in a lot, you know, over the lot, I think. You know.
Oh yeah, I don't understand why.
Jonathan Gresham, it should be just out there, just main event. He is pound for pound one of the best technical wrestlers I've seen in the last 5 years.
As a couple, all they do is it looks like all they do is work out.
That's why I imagine I'm sure they have plenty of decent downtime, but it looks like these guys could spot each other for fun in and out of the gym. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And do you know what the great thing is as well, Dave? Is like, obviously you've got to meet them, you've got to know them on a personal level. As a fan, they just seem to be enjoying what they're doing, which not everybody in the world of wrestling, as I'm sure you can testify to, genuinely does all the way through the career. But there are just some people like Jordan, like Jonathan, and a few others that we've already mentioned, seem to be really enjoying what they're doing. There seems to be like a lot of freedom there. And obviously you've touched upon it. You met her at Ric Flair's last match. Let's unpack that, Dave, because that's a massive feather in your cap in terms of your career. You were the man that put the 1, the 2, and the 3 in that last ever match with Ric Flair. And obviously, just talk us through it. Just talk us through the guys in the main event. You know, how it came to be that you were blessed enough to be that guy who put the 3 count down.
Well, I'd like to tell you it's because I paid my dues and I've done 18 years on the independent scene, and I work real hard, and I'm a tremendous referee, and it was just an honor to be asked. And truth of the matter is, Conrad Thompson's one of my best friends, and he wanted that for me. I mean, if we're being 100% honest, I love Conrad so much, and I've known Conrad for goodness 10 years now, and I mean, I knew Conrad before podcasts. I mean, my tie to Conrad Thompson is that we collect wrestling belts. We're belt collectors.
Yeah.
But when this all came together, I was going to get to referee a match, and I was at work. Doing my day job, and he calls me and he says, "Hey, Dave, we're putting format together and trying to get it all out down on who's doing what. I got a choice for you. Would you like to referee the Rock and Roll Horseman match, or would you like to referee the Von Erichs and Briscoes?" So I laughed and I said, "Well, there's a Sophie's choice."
All of the above.
So I said, put me down for the Briscoes. And that's exactly what I told him, because the Briscoes, one of the best acts in the world.
Oh,
I mean, they're the best tag teams in the world.
Yeah.
And, you know, and a lot of people think that I was in that match because my fandom, I grew up in Texas going to World Class Championship Wrestling. Huge Von Erich fan, huge Freebird fan.
Yeah.
My first wrestling match I ever went to was Kerry Von Erich versus Ric Flair.
Oh, come on.
In 1982. So that's what made me the hardcore fan that I am still to this day. So I picked the Briscoes because I want to work with the Briscoes. Von Erichs, I mean, the Von Erich boys, don't get me wrong, that's fun too.
Yeah.
But after seeing the Briscoes on the NWA Crockett Cup, they were on my radar as to how great they really are. Yeah. And then I couldn't get enough of the Briscoes from that point. So fast forward to the morning of Ric Flair's last match, where the StarCast wrestling convention is going on. We have our morning meeting, what we're gonna do for the day. And as everybody leaves, Conrad says, "Dave, come here, sit down, we'll talk to you." So I sit down. He said, "Tonight we're gonna do for Rick's match. We're gonna bump Kyoto. We're gonna need you to run out and slide in and make the 3 count. Can you do that?" And I'm like, and I'm trying to be cool and not do the happy dance, but I realized the magnitude of what I'm going to get to do. And it's 100%. He waited till the day of because he said that he knew I wouldn't sleep.
Man, nailed on.
He talks about our group chat. Everybody in the chat knew about this for weeks before me.
Wow.
So they're all looking at me like when I'm walking around, because I'm not telling anybody. Nobody. I'm not telling anybody. And they're all grinning at me like, "I know, do you know?" And, you know, but he tells me, and I'm thanking him and everything, and I can't wait. And then I'm in a situation, I don't know if you've ever been, where if you said one word to anybody, you start crying. Yeah. That's how overwhelmed I was. And it's not that, and it wasn't that I was overwhelmed about I get to be in that to do the Ric Flair spot, that my friend put that much faith in me.
Powerful.
To be a part of a powerful moment. It was and I felt like and learned and found out it wasn't an easy sell for a no-name referee to get to do that. But Conrad wanted it for me because I'm a Ric Flair fan. He's my all-time favorite. I started going because I wanted to see him get beat. Once he got beat by Kerry Von Erich in '84, I left there that day after seeing what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
Then realized that I wasn't going to see that. I was going to see Rick. And when Rick quit coming to town because World Class left the NWA,
yeah,
and the houses went from 18,000 to 6,000 in a basketball arena.
Yeah, yeah.
I wasn't the only one that was going to see Ric Flair. And
The vast majority.
That's kind of when I got it.
Yeah.
You're going to see. You thought you were going to see Magnum TA and Ric Flair. You thought you were going to see Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair.
Yeah.
No, you were going to see Ric Flair.
Yeah.
And I kind of got it one time when Rick lost the title to Harley Race prior to coming to Dallas to defend it against Kevin Von Erich in '83. We got to the arena and found out that Rick had lost the title and Harley Race was defending against Kevin that night. And I remember the disappointment. Wow. Which you shouldn't be disappointed you got to see Harley Race. And I came to appreciate Harley Race more. It was a great match. But it's like, oh, Rick's not here? Yeah. Because back then, we didn't have the internet to tell us when titles changed hands.
Of
you
course.
Didn't hear about it. If they didn't come to your area or say anything about it on television, you didn't know until the magazine came out.
Right. Of course.
So my wife looked at me and she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, she goes, "What's wrong?" I said, "Nothing's wrong." And I said, "I'll be back." And I went to the restroom and I broke down.
Yeah, yeah.
It overwhelmed me.
Yeah.
But it overwhelmed me because of my friend, not because of, I mean, I was excited for it. And then, like I said, the rest of the day, I'm on cloud 9 and got to the arena, and Jeff Jarrett looked at me and smiled and came to me. Because the first time I met Jeff Jarrett, I asked him about Tully Blanchard blowing him up in 2005, which I found out is probably not something you should ask anybody. But I had a question about the style of the match, and not so much. I wasn't trying to insult Jeff Jarrett.
No, of course.
Tully wrestled him different than he's used to wrestling on television, and it winded him. And according to wrestling legends that were watching the same match I was watching, and I just wanted to talk about the style of wrestling, and I said it poorly, but Jeff
the
Jarrett,
intention was good though. It was a good intention.
I've got a friendship with Jeff Jarrett. He knows who I am for that. So that's our thing. So they came to me and he said, "Hey, when you run in tonight, I'm going to need you to run down, touch the ring, run back up, touch the top of the stage. I need you to do that like 5 times before you slide in because I need you blown up when you come in."
Man,
so
class.
So,
honestly.
But we got there and Rick called us over and we talked and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm the ref." And he said, it was just like, he was I think he was messing with me. He said, "We got to go to my dressing room." And we're in the dressing room. And then I watched Jeff Jarrett perform magic because I was in a room with Ric Flair, Jeff Jarrett, Conrad Thompson. Then his daughter Charlotte, Ashley, and Andrade showed up.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Karen Jarrett's in there, and Conrad's wife Megan. And there's lots of discussion on what needs to happen. And what Rick did in the ring, now he did dehydrate. He did dehydrate. Yeah. He was not drinking alcohol before the match. He dehydrated.
Yeah.
Heck, he had an elliptical from the Tennessee Titans in his dressing room.
Wow.
Rick wanted to go out there and look like a 73-year-old man.
Yeah, yeah.
His daughter wanted him to go out there and look extremely strong.
Yeah. And
he said, "I'm not, what these 2 men are doing for me, I'm not going to do that to them. I'm 70 years old."
Got to be realistic.
So laying on an apron looking like he's about to die was, part of
the plan. Yeah, yeah.
Now, he was suffering at the end of the match, dehydrated. But that being said, there was egos going on in the room. Rick had a strong opinion. Ashley had a strong opinion because she was champion for her husband.
Yes.
And he was communicating a little bit, but he didn't speak good English.
No, that's true.
So, there was a lot of that going on. And Jeff Jarrett jumped in with a notepad of paper, and he took over laying out, this is what we're going to do. But the most impressive part is how he controlled the egos in the room. Oh, Mike Chioda was there too. I wasn't slight. Mike Chioda was in there with us. and we're listening, and it's intense. But when Jeff Jarrett took over and he made what they wanted to do all make sense,
Yeah.
I started appreciating Jeff Jarrett on a completely different level. I mean, he's one of the greatest heels of all time.
Yeah.
He's been doing this for 34 years.
And he looks great.
88
as well.
When my first time I saw him in Dallas in 88.
Yeah.
So he took over that room. He laid it all out. The documentary, what he did to Rick, I mean, he literally did stab him with a shoe.
Yeah.
Some of the best storytelling. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm an independent ref that stood out there in front of almost 9,000 people that night in an arena, and have no idea how many watched at home, but that was quite a moment for me, that to be in front of that many people. And I know that Jeff's storytelling ability is what put us there.
Fantastic. Do you know what? You backed up what I've heard a lot of people say, because I've spoke to other, we've got obviously promotions within the UK as well, where Jeff Jarrett and a few others have come to parts of the UK where I'm based in Yorkshire, and done shows there. And when you say that about Jeff, they say that on a level, take away the character of Jeff Jarrett, his wrestling mind, not just as a performer, but as a promoter and as an organizer, and as somebody who can sit in a locker room and break down matches and get the best out of people, is second to none in a lot. That he just seems to have a good business brain for the whole aspect of the world of wrestling, where he doesn't just put himself on a pedestal. He's literally like, what's gonna make this work? What are fans going to buy into? What they're going to believe? What are the limitations of everybody involved in the matches, and how can we sell it? And I've had a few people say that he's one of the best people to speak to on that type of level, because he just detaches himself and just looks at a bigger picture. And I'm just wondering if that was kind of one of those moments that you experienced when that came out, in the match.
Until that point, I was a fan of the man in the ring. And at that point, I realized how brilliant the man behind the scenes is, and why he's still relevant today.
Yeah.
Why he was a catch for AEW, why WWE had him back.
Yeah.
Why he's been able to be around when after all these years, they still use him, and there's a reason for it.
100%.
And I don't want to gloss over the Von Erichs and the Briscoes. First, I want to say, it's so terrible that we lost Jay Briscoe.
I was going to touch with you on that. Like, obviously, you got the pleasure to meet them. What was that like?
I got the pleasure to see the human, the Briscoe brothers. What you see on television with them boys is not what you meet. They are the expectation, that they're crazy, that the chicken farmer and when they got there, the Von Erichs had travel issues. They traveled for 36 hours to get there. Their match was moved from 3rd to 7th because they weren't there.
Mm.
They got there well after 6 o'clock, after the show had started. I mean, they got there last minute. One of them had food poisoning. One of them was jet lagged.
Wow.
They'd slept in an airport on the floor. Normally you would think that, hey, we got to go over this, get our stuff together because we're fixing to be out. No, the Briscoes went to them as humans and was concerned for their well-being.
Oh, bless them, man.
Everything they asked them, do you feel like, can you, let's keep this, because it was just the human aspect of it. And then it's not uncommon in wrestling for someone to lead a prayer at the beginning of the show for the locker room.
Yeah.
That's not uncommon. But I don't know of any other time that I can remember that a group wanted to pray before they went to the ring in the gorilla position.
That is
and
awesome.
To see the Briscoes, it wouldn't have surprised me with the Von Erichs.
No.
But I saw that their faith was important to them.
Yeah. I've spoke to Marshall about that. I've spoke to Marshall Von Erich about that, and it's a massive part of their whole family, their whole upbringing as well.
It's just, when I saw that, it just made it extremely hard for me to see that Jay passed.
Yeah.
Because if I wouldn't have had the opportunity to work with him, I wouldn't have known the human side. And so I'm not surprised when their family comes out with no malice towards the other car, and recognizing that those people need help too. You know, those kids lost people, and
Amen.
you know, and so they're selfless that way when they could be bitter. And you know, and I do truly believe that Jay's in a better place today.
Amen. I mean, obviously, that was amazing about, you know, the fact that you got to witness that moment with the Briscoes and the Von Erichs. What I also want to touch about on as well, Dave, is leading on from that, a lovely little link as well is, you know, a big part of the Wrestling with Faith podcast is that people wrestle with faith, you know, as well as me loving, you know, my relationship with God, and all things to do with supporting mental health as somebody who's been through mental health, and obviously my love of the world of wrestling. You know, I'll say it loud and I'll say it proud. What does faith mean to you, and has that impacted your life in any way, shape, or form?
You know, I actually wrestled with faith a little myself. Back in 1993, we were talking with I went to the State Fair of Texas with my grandmother and my mother. And we were talking about things going on, and we got into a conversation about why bad things happen to good people. And I told them, I said, because I said, I don't know that it wasn't that I didn't believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
I just told them, I said, I think as a people, we have become so evil that God left. We're on our own. I believe in him. He just left. I think he gave up on us. And my grandmother got so upset that I felt that way. I mean, it really, and that kind of killed the conversation at that point, because I've upset my grandmother. We went to the fair. Well, this was on a Friday. Well, the following Thursday, I was leaving work, and I was attacked by 3 gentlemen that they ambushed me leaving work, shot me in the back of the head, and left me for dead. The bullet went in right there, shattered my jaw, came out under my eye. This entire side of my face is rebuilt.
Wow.
So I get taken to the hospital. I'm awake through all this. I remember the ambulance ride. The paramedics came, and they said, my brother-in-law was a paramedic. He wasn't one of them, but I remember they said, are we going to take him to Parkland? They go, no, this is Stovall's brother. Let's take him to Baylor. And we go to Baylor Hospital, and when I'm hurt, I'm trying to be funny. So, and they're trying to save my life, so they really have any time for my humor, but they were taking me to radiology, and I asked the lab tech if he was a priest. And because what I had said the week before, I'm worried about it now.
Yeah.
But, and they actually went and found the chaplain for the hospital.
Wow.
But I mean, they almost lost me in radiology. My head swelled out huge and set down on my shoulder. And the radiology guy saved my life. I don't know what he did, but he saved my life. Anyway, they put me in a coma. I go to sleep on a Thursday night. I wake up the following Friday. It's one big long night to me. And I had a little Superman tattoo on my arm back when getting tattoos wasn't as cool as it is now. And I mean, my parents didn't even know I had this, and the secret was out. But the doctors and nurses were playfully calling me Super Dave because I got shot in the head and I lived through it.
Wow.
My doctors at Baylor Hospital in Dallas told me that there was no physical reason that I survived that. They had to give me 14 units of blood and platelets. And anyway, I was wrong. I doubted a week before that God was still there. I mean, it's a little extreme, but he's alive and well.
Amen.
And but you know, as silly as I was, I didn't believe that he did it for me. that, that he wasn't finished with me yet. I believed that this Southern Baptist prayer circle that my grandmother's, and I mean, because when I got done, I was on a church tour thanking everybody, for the prayers. But during that whole time, I never believed that it was for me. I believed that he answered their prayers, because I told the chaplain what I'd said, and he told me right now, don't worry about that.
Mm-mm.
You don't even have to worry about it.
No.
So that was, it was a heck of a wake up call. And to this day, I still don't understand why bad things happen to good people, but it just does. And but I'm glad I am glad he answered the call, because I'm a walking talking miracle. That
Amen. Absolutely. I've got to be honest, Dave. I have not ever spoke to anybody, even in social circles, let alone had somebody on my podcast say, yeah, by the way, I know this wrestler personally. I've refereed this match, and other. Yeah. And by the way, I got born again because I got shot in the back of the head. That's never happened to me. So hearing this testimony, because this is a testimony here. This is ministry right here between us. This is a testimony. I know that people listening to this who might not even be that fussed about the world of wrestling, but needed to hear something like that. As a non-believer going through something so extreme thrust upon them that's made them question, actually, there's something bigger. There's something, and God's not left. God's here. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah, I never questioned his existence.
No.
But I was thinking, but how could he allow?
Yeah.
How can he allow all this? And then, and this was in '93, and as a society, we're not much better now.
No, we're not.
So,
but this is the thing, though, isn't it? God made everything barring one thing, and that was a mistake. And the fact that even if you were the only person in the world at that time when he went to the cross, he would have still done that. He'd have still gone to the cross. He'd have still died on the cross. Even if you or I were the only people on the planet, that was still part of his plan, because he loved us so much that he gave us everything. And he's bound by his word. We know that God can do anything and everything, but he made a commitment. He bound to the word that the world would be given over to man. And for God to go back on that would make God a liar. And I genuinely think because man has fallen and not God, that's why we're in the situation we're in, man. Listen, there are great people. There are great people in this world. There are people who are just a blessing to us and who bless us. And there are people, sadly, on the other end of the spectrum who, for whatever reason, it seems to be their remit to do bad things to people. You know what I mean? And, we've got to try and be pillars of that by saying, look, do you know what? We don't like what you're doing. We don't like what you're saying. But for us to drop down to your level and to do that to you, that won't make us any better than them sort of people. And sadly, like you say, and the things of like what we spoke about earlier about Brody, about Jay as well, about Eddie, these things that just no one saw it coming. No one's really to blame. No one's really at fault. It's just sad things. Bad things just do happen. I think our responsibility.
Well, even my fans.
Yeah,
I've mentioned I'm a fan of the Von Erich family.
Yeah,
and Fritz and his wife were always doing things for. It was always with the church. They were on the Christian broadcast system.
Yeah,
they were going to Israel. Fritz lost 5 of his 6 sons.
I know. That's a family that's known tragedy, hasn't it? And been publicized as well. It's not even like they can even deal with that in private.
He gets criticized as being a horrible father because he pushed his sons in the wrestling. But his mother, she lost 6 boys too. That eventually did destroy their marriage.
Of course. Yeah.
But what losing one kid does to somebody, by the time Fritz lost the 5th one and you're criticizing him because, you would think that when your son shows up and he wants to go out on the property, this isn't going to end well. You've seen it before. But, how much can one man take?
Exactly.
I can't imagine losing one child
No,
let alone.
neither can I.
And this man lost one when, started out when one of them was 5.
Yeah.
And then he lost David.
Yeah.
And then he lost Mike. And then he lost Carrie. And then he lost Chris.
Yeah.
And Kevin, who probably preaches his faith more than anybody. You can see it in his kids. That family, his ties to his family and a good Christian woman kept that man alive.
Nailed on. Absolutely. And not only that as well, like I say on the back of that, all of that tragedy was dealt with a court of public opinion as well. It wasn't like that was just private amongst the Von Erich family. The world of wrestling and the Christian world, even before we had the internet, people just knew the tragedy of the Von Erich family. When I was growing up at school, and when that happened, the Texas tornado, when that happened, it was like, man, it hit us like kids, because we'd be spinning around, hitting each other in the face, doing the Texas tornado finisher, the tornado spin and things like that. And, growing up getting the Hasbro figures, do you know what I mean? And all that. It was a big deal because that was our era of wrestling, was WWF as it was then. And, like you say, it's awful, but we, as well as dealing with our own grief, we have to know that God does love us. There is a God there, and God does love us. And it does sober you up sometimes, doesn't it, to make you appreciate what you've got and not take that for granted as well in a lot of those cases. Dave, I'm conscious, man, that you're a really busy guy, and I really appreciate your time. And honestly, it's been an absolute blessing. I mean, you're the only guy I know who's drinking Monster at 7 a.m, man. So that's commitment. You know what I mean? I love that. Before we go,
It's my vice.
You've been an absolute blessing to me on this podcast, and I really, really appreciate it. Honestly, God knows in my heart, I really appreciate your time on that. And I know that you and I will hopefully catch up at some point, maybe later in the year, to wax lyrical about things that we haven't had time to cover, and to catch up on what has happened in the world of wrestling between now and then. But before we do that, I want people to know where they can reach out to you, where they can see what you do. So the platform's yours, Dave. Just fire away and plug your socials for me, please.
All right. I'm at Ref PWD on Twitter. I'm also at PWD Pod on Twitter, which is the Pondwater Dave Show. www.thepondwaterdaveshow.com will take you to our YouTube channel, but you can get me on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your downloads. If you're listening to this, you can find mine. We do a wrestling show. We'll talk about the current stuff. We'll talk about the indies. We really love to talk about the indies. We just had an indie promoter on. Do support indie wrestling. It's not the minor leagues. It's not, you never say to an indie wrestler when you make it. No, you're a wrestler. When you become they're all wrestlers. It's just that just because you don't see them on TV doesn't mean they're not good. They're just someone that hasn't had that opportunity yet.
Amen.
And you can see you see tomorrow's stars today when you go to an independent show. But I also encourage you to go to live events for WWE, because television wrestling is not the same. What we were talking about Imperium, when you see them live in an arena, it's different than what you see on TV, and you come to appreciate them even a greater appreciation for them. So do go out of your way to support independent wrestling. Also, if you would, you want to keep up with what I'm doing, I work for Bayou Independent Wrestling at Bayou_wrestling on Twitter. We're going to be in the historic City Auditorium in Vicksburg, Mississippi next Saturday, the 4th. That's where Mid-South used to run back in the day. I recently learned World Class ran a show there, and the Super Black Ninja was on the show, and that's the Great Muta.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
I'm so excited to work another historic venue this year. I'm booked for the entire year. I'm working for Bayou. I'm working for Legacy Wrestling. I'm excited to see where this year takes me. Hopefully I can work for the Wrestling Showcase again. I managed to, I took 2 years off. I retired and came back strong last year and refereed in 6 states. Plus, arguably, hey, I became an answer to a trivia question.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Who's the
referee? It's going to be hard. it's going to be hard to top last year. It's going to be hard to top last year, but I'm trying this year. And I've already had the opportunity to work with former world champion Tim Storm and four-time world tag team champions, the Heat Seekers. So, man. I mean, I've started out strong already. We're catch Bayou Independent Wrestling if you can. Look for us on YouTube. Just, support indie wrestling is what I'm long-windedly trying to say.
100%, man. And if you look at some of the podcasts that I've done, I've had quite a few guys from Texas as well, on indie wrestling shows as well. And these guys are just, like you just said, they aren't amateurs. They are wrestlers. They are really good at what they do. And we live in a world now where if we can't get to the shows, we've got YouTube, we've got Twitter, we've got Facebook. We can see the videos. We can see these men and women in action. So 100%. And God's putting you in some good places, Dave, putting you in some good contacts and in some exciting times as well. So amen for that. Dave, I know you're going to pop across those links to me, if you wouldn't mind. I should ask you to do that. Pop those links to me. They will be in the YouTube video for you all to be able to just click on directly and go to there. So again, like, subscribe, follow Dave on there as well. And Super Dave, we're not taking that name lightly now after the last half of that podcast. Super Dave, I just want to say on behalf of Wrestling with Faith, thank you very much for your time, brother. God bless and all the very best for the future.
God bless you. And thank you for having me on. I've had a wonderful time this morning.